Welcome to Motormouth, brought to you by the Boyertown Museum of Historic Vehicles. I'm Kendra.
I'm Dan.
This is Dan. And we're here in the beautiful Reading Diner, which sits inside the Boyertown Museum. And we hope that you will come out here and check out the diner sometime. The museum is open 7 days a week from 9:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. And we're located at 85 South Walnut Street in Boyertown, Pennsylvania.
Beautiful Boyertown.
Beautiful Boyertown, Pennsylvania. And got some great things going on here very soon. Of course, Jury Day is coming up on September 1st, and that will be at Boyertown Community Park. Of course, the museum is also open that day, and we will shuttle people back and forth from the park to here. And here at the museum, we'll have blacksmithing. We'll talk about that a little later.
Yes.
In the program, actually. And always a great event. We typically get a couple hundred cars, trucks, and motorcycles over at the park. And if we'd love to have you there.
Couple hundred? Times 3, maybe?
Yeah. If you have a car,
hundreds.
That's right. If you have a car that you'd like to add to our 500, 600 show cars. You can do that by registering. We have the registration form is on the museum's website, boyertownmuseum.org, or give us a call here at the museum, stop in, and we'll send one out to you. We'd love to do that. So that's really the big thing coming up that we want you all to remember and prepare for. And we're just going to go right on to the show then, I think.
Okie dokie.
Why the heck not?
Why not? Yep. Okay, I am going to talk about something. It was introduced, I'm trying to think, was it 2 months ago? We were talking about a wheel jack made in Reading. I think that was 2 months ago.
Right.
And a friend of mine had, he showed me a book on eBay that had this advertisement for that. Well, I was looking through that. I purchased the book, okay, it's right here, Automobile Trade Journal, July 1st, 1925. It also had another advertisement in it that you're going to see in a moment, but it was about a product, and it was kind of interesting. And Bovite is the product. And what does that remind you of when you hear about Bovite?
Cows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Doesn't have anything to do with cows, though.
Oh, we're going to have a cow car.
But not even leather, nothing. So, sorry. Anyway,
I flunked your pop quiz, I'm sorry. I flunked the pop quiz, I'm
well,
sorry.
you participated, though. you filled in a blank, which is better than a lot of the pop quizzes I had when I was in school. Yeah. I wasn't even part of the curve. If they were marking by curve. No.
You were off the bell?
Very, yeah. So anyway, we're talking about Bovite, which is made by American Armor Corporation out of New York City. So that gives you an idea. It has something to do with armor. And the first picture you're going to show, that you're going to see there, is something about bulletproof vest. And you're going to see, you're seeing a cop there, a policeman rather, with a bulletproof vest. And probably can't read the caption under it, so I can read it for you. Motorcycle Officer William Vincent of East St. Louis, Missouri, who single-handed captured a gang of gunmen. Any one of the 4 body shots he received during the fray would have been fatal, but for his Bovite bulletproof vest. Now all East St. Louis motorcycle policemen wear Bovite vest, okay? I'm not sure of the date of it, but it's probably somewhere in the 20s. And so I thought that was interesting. In the picture, you can't really see it because it's a copy out of a newspaper, I guess. But you can see some markings on his vest, and I guess that's where the bullets hit him. Wow. Anyway, you're probably wondering, what is Bovite? I mean, why Bovite?
Well, it's not leather.
All the words in the universe and the combinations of letter. It was invented by a gentleman called J.J. DeBoves, D-E-B-O-V-E-S. Metallurgist. All right. He's a metallurgist, and so that's what he came up with. Now, I read something about the vest, and it's talking about layers of material, like small layers, and it disperses like the gunshot to you, okay? But
Yeah.
the bovite we're talking about is a little bit different, and there's a theory of flexible resistance and vibratory leaks. That's, yeah, I did the same thing.
I didn't do
It's
well
like,
in
yeah.
physics.
No, well, this is pretty simple
Okay,
physics.
all right.
Okay, that title is kind of the hardest
Yeah.
thing about it. Okay?
Oh, all right.
Now, it's interesting. I found this, and I'm going to read the whole thing. It's a couple paragraphs long, and I found it at first in a newspaper online, the Brisbane Courier from 1926 from Australia. And I'm thinking, what in the world, you know? And I thought that was pretty cool. And I was looking around a little more, and I saw one in the Automobile Industry magazine from this country a year earlier. So they basically, they didn't copy it because there's no quote marks around it. What do you call it? Plagiarized?
Yeah,
maybe?
yeah, yeah.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay, I don't want to
Don't
accuse them of that.
throw these wild accusations.
Okay. Anyway, let me read this. The de Beau's theory is that if vibration due to an impact can be conducted away rapidly enough, no damage can be done to the material so struck. A flying bullet, it is claimed, is an inert mass. You still following me here?
Vaguely.
Inert mass, okay. Riding on a moving region of energy or tension in the ether. The part of this energy in front of the bullet is dispersed before the impact. On impact, the bullet flattens out and acts as a sort of protective armor against the energy behind it. In other words, as it's hitting, the rest of the bullet is still moving, okay? Therefore, when a bullet does not penetrate, the varying energy is spread over a large area instead of an area equal to that of the projectile. Bovite material, because it can absorb and conduct vibratory ripples, provides an area of partial saturation of energy of about 12 square inches instead of an area of total saturation of about twice the circumference of a bullet. So in other words, this material now is being absorbed by that much, or it's absorbing that much force instead of an area that big.
Gotcha.
Okay? This ferrous metal, which is molybdenum, in which molybdenum is used, provides this conductivity. By a new process, it is artificially and rapidly aged. This artificial aging is induced by the use of boron, which tends to increase the freezing range. Subsequent mechanical treatment preserves the molecular balance, this balance being utilized to produce increased uniform conductivity. A metal sheet in which the core differs in density from the outer strata is the result. Their sheets are shaped by hot and cold compression and thus differ radically from the ordinary unworkable and rigid armored plate. Okay, so right there at the end, the unworkable and rigid armored plate they're talking about is pretty thick stuff, and that's what everybody thinks, you know, armored vehicles. You see armored vehicles now, they're pretty thick and stuff. But I was asking around to people who might know this kind of stuff, and even modern armor, that's what it does is, you know, you're not just penetrating a thing, but it spreads that impact out over a large area.
So it's not as...
Because they use actually fabric as part of that, which, you know, is hard to understand, but that's what does it. So there you go. It's bulletproof material.
Okay.
Next picture you're going to see here is a, it's some sort of a van, and the caption under it says, "Testing a bovite armored body now in use by the National City Bank of New York City."
Ooh,
so, and it shows a couple guys real close shooting at it. So, let's see it.
A bulletproof vest for your truck.
Well, it's, yeah, okay. So this material, again, disperses the impact over a relatively large area. It's an alloy metal, which it said that molybdenum is used. You might have heard moly is kind of a nickname for that. And I think it's carbon moly. I see that in roll cages of cars, race cars. But anyway, that's besides the point. So, it cannot be drilled. It must be punched or sheared. And I thought that was interesting. It can take any kind of finish, and you look into advertising, the one advertisement I found in this book, and it says it can be painted any color you want, like a regular car.
Wow.
It's only a 1/16 of an inch thick, so you couldn't really tell that it was
Right.
armored. It would just look like a regular
amazing.
car. Okay. Other suggested uses. Springs where shock and vibration are experienced. Not bulletproof springs, but just regular springs. It didn't really explain that. I didn't understand it. But it also mentioned bulletproof aeroplanes. Not airplanes, but aeroplanes.
Aeroplanes.
Yeah. And so they were thinking of, you know,
Yeah.
military there.
Yeah.
Also, out of the Brisbane Carrier from Australia, it says apparently motor insurance companies in the United States have been impressed with this invention for owners of cars so equipped are allowed reduced premiums. Yeah.
Nice.
So, so there you could get one. How would you get it? You'd probably go to your local dealer, let's
Yeah.
say Oldsmobile dealer,
Yeah.
and say, I want one of these bulletproof bodies. And there was a company in New Jersey called the Joseph Wildanger Company. Hopefully I pronounced it right, out of Red Bank, New Jersey. They were bodybuilders, and I never really heard of them, but I went online again and I found stuff written up about them out of the Red Bank newspaper, whatever it was, out of 1925 or 6. And it's talking all about them building these bodies and kind of some of what I already mentioned, but it went on. The chassis of the car was sent to this Wildanger, and they made the entire body, including seat and other equipment. I don't know what other equipment was. Joseph Wildanger, who was an immigrant from Austria, he designed the bodies himself. They tested every body part before installation. I'm trying to think, how did
Wow.
they test them? Did they have
The
a firing
guns out and
range?
start
I don't
shooting
know.
them? Oh my gosh.
They also had bulletproof windows made from 3 layers of glass, so it was like 7/8 of an inch thick. So that was how you could tell, I guess. And also could be slid open for use, for weapons use. They also had gun ports in the car you could have. So not only did they make like trucks, like you saw the picture of a little bit ago, but they made regular cars, sedans and stuff. Those sedans could have seats that converted to cots for the wounded. And I thought,
Oh my
okay. In other words,
It didn't keep me safe.
if they got a really big bullet and it made it through, or you didn't close your window quick enough. Yeah. Anyway, it would add about 180 to 250 pounds to the weight of the vehicle. So that's interesting. And I went online and I actually found a magazine here, Vintage Truck. This is from about 12 years ago. Had an article about that bodybuilder, Wildanger, in Red Bank. Pete Kostisek sent me this.
Ah.
Good old Pete. So if you're watching, Pete, thanks.
Hi, Pete. Thank
And it
you.
had an article in it, but it only mentioned about these bulletproof bodies, only like a sentence or two. And that company was known for making Suburbans, which was like Woody station wagons. And
Okay.
they made them on all sorts of things. So we have to find one. Maybe one will be at Duryea Day.
Ooh,
So.
I'd like to see a Bovite car.
Yeah.
That'd be fun.
Yeah. So anyway, to close up, the last thing you're going to see here is the advertisement out of the magazine. The only advertisement I saw, it says new prospects for automobile salesmen. So, you know, somebody walks in and says, boy, should I get an Oldsmobile or should I get this Buick over here? And they say, hey, if you get an Oldsmobile, we'll throw in a Bovite body for you. I don't know how much more it would cost, but it is a custom built body. And it's interesting because they talk about it and stuff. It'll stop a bullet up to a 45 caliber bullet here and so on and so forth. And then it talks about Bovite bulletproof vest here. And it shows a guy standing there very proud with somebody pointing a gun right at his chest. And it talks about it says they are a necessary protection for, and it has all these people, armored car crews, bank doormen, bank messengers, cashiers, custom house officers, so on and so on and so forth. And it's pretty interesting. So that's it. That's your Bovite bulletproof bodies from American Armor Corporation story for
I
the
feel
day.
like Elliot Ness needed a car like this.
He might have had one.
Maybe he did.
Yeah. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, the ad that, you know, it's great with the guys, you know, trying to shoot up the car.
Very,
but
very evil looking.
they are. But even the photo you showed earlier, the testing that on the one that was used by National City Bank, those guys even look,
Yeah.
it's like they dress the part, get the long dark coats on and the hats
And, you know, this is in the 20s. This is Prohibition. And I have a feeling there was a lot, you know, you hear about like in Chicago how they had the gunfights and everything.
Yeah.
You think it's bad now. I guess it was sort of like
Yeah.
that back then too. But here you go.
it's very gangstery.
Yeah. So I could see your little copper thing out there
Yeah,
being
it's gonna need some
clad with bovite.
Yes, will they paint the bovite orange?
I think they would paint it white with black dots to make it look like a cow. A small one, a
You
calf.
know, I had a friend with a car painted like a cow
Oh, really?
back in high school. Yep.
Okay.
White with black. I thought you were going to talk about that car there for a second.
No.
I don't know what happened to it. It's probably in the junkyard now anyway. Very cool.
And that's what I have.
Well, we're going to take a little trip to a part of the museum I don't think we've been to before for this show.
I don't think so
I
either.
don't think so either. So stay with us and you'll get to see something we haven't showed you on the screen yet. So we'll catch
Stay
you in a minute.
tuned.
That's right.
Don't touch that dial.
Well, we are up here in our 1872 carriage factory. That's the age of this building. This started out as the Jeremiah Swinehart Carriage Factory. And the carriage factory grew over the years out to where the museum is now. It eventually turned into the Boyertown Auto Body Works. But we have been fortunate enough to keep this building, that it's always stayed standing. They never tore it down, it never burned down. And we use it now. This was something that was open usually on Saturdays only, and by appointment, or if we had some people in that were from really out of town, we might bring them up here. But now, we have now opened it up all 7 days of the week, so it's available to come see anytime that you're here. However, Saturdays are still special because we typically have a blacksmith up here working away at the forge. And with us tonight is one of our blacksmiths, this is Nick Gilbert. Nick, thank you for coming tonight.
My pleasure, Kendra.
And like I said, Nick is one of our rotating blacksmiths. So you come in here and fire up the forge. And I guess really my first question for you is, why did you start blacksmithing? It's not like something everyone does, so.
Yeah, it's not exactly taught in school anymore.
No.
It's oddly enough, it's just, you know, being a child and seeing you know, some different shows on TV. You know, saw a couple of documentaries on the History Channel about blacksmithing and what it looked like, and you know how it was performed, and it really kind of grew from that. And then you know, I had the opportunity to you know, work with a guy once, and I was able to, you know, to say, wow, this is something I really enjoy doing, and I've just kept at it, you know, as a hobby, and I you know, I don't know, it's one of those things. It's sort of as a hobby or as something that you do with your own free time. For me, this is something that gives me a great amount of enjoyment, and I know I like it because if I mess something up when I'm blacksmithing, I'm never that angry about it.
You can probably fix it too, right?
Well, sometimes depends. Yeah, depends.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And you said, when did you get interested? You were
I was pretty young. I was
Yeah.
pretty young.
Because it's interesting, because we'll have people come in, a group will come in on a Saturday, and you're hammering away here and telling, and every time I pop in here and you're here and you see a group of people, they're always really interested, and it's not just older people, but it's real young, you know, kids. It's really different than what people know about.
Well, that's true. I mean, you know, it's always kind of fun, you know, having young kids come in. when they're here, and then we get to interact with them a little bit, and they're usually very wide-eyed and like, what is this? This is what is that? Why? Look at that fire. Why is that fire so bright, Mom or Dad?
Yeah.
And whoever they're with, and they ask a lot of questions, and they're really interested. And some of them love the loud noises, some of them hate it. And I think there's something very kind of quasi-primal about doing this. This isn't something that you typically see anywhere in the States anymore. Everything, if you need something that's metal, like a spoon or a knife or a tool, you go to a hardware store or a Walmart or some other place and buy it.
Make it.
And now you can make it.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
I think probably one of the reasons kids like watching, you mentioned a fire, that's kind of catches your eye. But you're also up here just beating on things with a hammer.
That's true. That's true.
Kids like beating on things with hammers.
Yes,
They do.
Yeah.
Isn't it's a more constructive way to be destructive.
Kind of. Yeah, surprisingly enough, it was when I first got into it. I always thought that as a novice and not knowing anything about the trade, I always figured, well, man, you got to come in here and you got to pound away at stuff. And you really got to beat on things. And one of the first things I learned was that you don't want to do that. You want to have very controlled, very precise hammer blows. You don't want to just be wailing away willy-nilly at things, because then you're not gonna get the result that you want. And it almost seems counterintuitive.
Discipline.
Yes.
It takes discipline.
It does take discipline. Yeah, and a lot of focus and a lot of attention to detail.
Yeah. Well, and you said it's primal, but it's like simple too. And I don't mean that it's easy, but it's fire, metal, and some hammers.
Yeah.
And you could make so much with such simple ingredients or tools.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's cool.
It is. You have so much opportunity that there's, your imagination is not completely your limit. I mean, there are certain things that you can and can't do. But I mean, to be honest, I mean, we often equate it when you're blacksmithing. If you had said earlier, if you make a mistake, you can fix it.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, you can. I mean, we're blacksmiths, one of the first recyclers. This isn't like carpentry. This isn't like woodworking. If I cut something too short in blacksmithing, I'm not relegated to having to go back and start over from scratch.
Yeah.
I can weld a new piece of metal to the piece I just cut, or I can work with what I have, and there's a number of ways to move around those limitations that something like woodworking has inherently in it.
So you essentially learned by, I guess we could say, like apprenticing, like you.
I would love to say I
Well,
learned a little bit.
Someone kind of took you under their wing, sort of, and taught you.
Yes,
things.
I did get some basic skills taught to me by a couple of smiths, and I rolled with that, and I kept working with that, and continue to teach myself, as I go. But really, it can be, at least in my experience, and I'm not the only blacksmith out there. I haven't found anybody local that I know of that is taking apprentices, or and then also it depends on your schedules.
Yeah.
What you have going on in your life. Like mine can be a little hectic, and I have a young family, and so I like to make sure that I give that a good amount of attention.
Right. They come first.
Yeah.
I know how that goes.
So I see a table in front of us here full of hunks of metal. No, it's just things, and I'm assuming most of these were made right here.
A good number of the stuff that we have here is stuff that we made here. Some of it is stuff that has been here for a long time. Some of it's just pieces from different eras, different places. We have like that door strap over there. That's a strap that would be used on a large door. And then you have a large wrought iron chain link over there, which is actually really cool because you can look at that and tell that that's actual wrought iron. It's not steel.
Okay.
And it's wrought iron's really neat because it has a grainy texture to it. It's a different kind of iron material than steel. And somebody brought in that, I'm not sure if that cording candle holder was made by a smith or if it was something that just somebody brought in. But that's an example of of a iron implement that was used hundreds of years ago. And then some stuff that we've made. One of our other smiths, Bob Lasudis, he's a very accomplished blacksmith, and he loves to do decorative leaf work. And so there's some examples of his leaf work up there. Usually when I'm here, I like to make more things that I'm not so much into the decorative stuff because I don't think I'm very good at it. But I like to do hooks. So we've made some hooks. A couple of examples of how you could recycle a railroad pin and take that, or the railroad spike, and take that railroad spike and turn it into something like a garden trowel there. And it's just
Before and after.
Yep, before and after. And then it's really cool. You can do a lot of different things with it, a lot of different projects, a lot of different ideas out there, a lot of uses for the material too. And it's it's a lot of fun. I enjoy doing it.
So I don't know if you would be a good person or Kendra would be a good person for asking this. We have a carriage shop from 1870s, okay, and we have a forge here. Now this was the location of an original forge back then, and there was also, was there 4 of them in here? 3 or 4?
5?
Five or six.
Okay,
5 or 6.
There was a line. So what were they forging in here that was used in carriages?
I've always looked at, there's pieces on like the cross members and stuff that kind of hold the frame together, iron pieces. There's a photo floating around that we use a lot of guys standing there at the tire bender.
Right.
So the tires on your carriages had iron tires.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, they're
Tires.
not rubber. And we have some tire benders here. And you and I were looking at that photo before we started, and we were trying to compare, as you can see the forge in it, and we were trying to compare like how accurate this was to the photo. And you had said something about,
Well, the where the fire pot sits in the photo looks to be about down, like the top of it actually seems to be about down here-ish. Like it's about 8 to 12 inches lower in the photo than this one. And again, this is a recreation, as far as I'm led to understand, this is a recreation that somebody did mocked up off of the
Yes,
photo
that
itself.
photo.
Yeah.
And before you continue, it was interesting why they were recreating that whole scene with that tire thing. It's even the stuff hanging from the ceiling. It was, it
Oh,
was,
yeah.
it
The
was
light
kinda
bulb.
interesting.
Yep, the
Yeah.
light bulb
is
and everything.
in that
Okay,
photo.
I'm sorry.
Oh no,
Yeah.
it's great. Well, and that's the thing. Like we were looking at it, and we kind of joked in your office that it was probably lower, and because they have this tire, this metal tire that could be almost that tall, and you wouldn't want to be holding it way up here to keep it so that's probably why it was a little lower.
Yeah.
But I think there's a lot of, if I look at the doctor's buggy, for example, when I look at that, I see a lot of handmade pieces on there. The step to get into the carriage is actually several pieces of iron or steel that have been welded together. It's not just a single piece. And simply the footrest inside the carriage itself, where you put your feet, that's got hand notch work put in it, symmetrical notch work, and that's not something you're going to find on a shelf in a warehouse. It's not something you ordered from a parts manufacturer. That was hand done. So, and you can see a lot of those little details in the older carriages. And honestly, I don't know how much of the carriage was done by hand. I would assume, as far as the metalwork is concerned, I would assume most of it was done by hand. But
Now you used the term a moment ago, welded together.
Yes.
Now, I think of these big electric welders.
Mechanical welders,
and we're
gas
not talking
welders.
about that.
no.
Okay.
We're talking about forge welding, and forge welding is where you bring 2 pieces of metal up to temperature in the fire, and it's going to be in a near liquid state. It's not
Okay.
quite liquid. It's a very, very fine line where you have the temperatures really hot in the 22 to 2400 degree range, and you're heating the metal up in there, and then you're bringing it over to the anvil, and then you're joining the 2 pieces of metal together with pressure. Okay. And you're forcing them all, because they're so close to that fluid state, that little bit of pressure forces the molecules together, and now you have a continuous piece of material.
So,
Yeah, it's one of the skills. It's one of the more difficult skills that a blacksmith has to master. Again, this is where apprenticing would be great, because if
I could teach you that.
I could teach you, they could teach me that, because it's a very difficult skill to do, and I've only ever successfully done it a couple of times. It takes a lot of practice to get really good at it, and some of the stuff I've read is from other accomplished smiths says that they weld every time they light a fire before they close out for the day.
Really?
They perform one weld just to stay proficient at it.
Keep fresh with it.
Yep,
Huh.
just to stay proficient.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow. So I remember talking to another blacksmith, and you know, he is unable to help us out anymore, but he had always told me about, of course there was always a fear, well, you have a fire up here, like, don't the places like burn down, you know, don't these places burn down? And he had always told me, no, that it's constructed to keep the fire going up. He said, when you hear about fires in blacksmith shops, it's because of things like that over there.
Yeah.
Which are the potbelly
Yes.
stoves.
Yep.
Because I'm sure you can say, now we have this heated and air conditioned now. It didn't used to be.
Didn't used to.
In the winter,
It would be cool
it
up
was
here.
still cold,
It was
even
still
if
a
you
little
had a
warm. It was still a
fire
little cool
going,
up here.
because it doesn't really throw that much heat, really.
The heat is, generally speaking, the heat and the fire are designed in the forge to be very localized. You don't want the heat going all over the place, because then it's not heating your piece.
It's not efficient.
And it's not efficient at
Yeah.
all. So this has a cast iron fire pot in it, and it's got the sides here, and it's coal too. I mean, soft coal, bituminous coal, burns a little more readily than hard coal or anthracite. And that's why a lot of times blacksmiths, generally speaking, blacksmiths use soft coal, because you can light it and you can have it going and you can work on your piece and you can leave that for a couple of minutes and then come back to it, throw the air back on it, and you can have it get going. Anthracite, a hard coal, usually requires a more constant airflow, so as soon as the airflow lets off, or so I've been informed, that it starts to go out and it's harder to maintain that fire. But yeah, it's very localized. It's generally very safe. The only time you're ever going to see something happen with a fire, you know, being caused from a forge, is if somebody were to drop a hot piece of iron on the floor and leave it there. And even then, you know, wood doesn't spontaneously combust. It just doesn't happen. So I mean, you have to. I mean, we use this. There's the camera can't see it quite here, but there's a log we use here, the top of the wood. We used to do some shaping for leaf work, you know, because the wood will give, and it's never caught fire.
Yeah.
a lot of times they use wooden, or for certain work they'll use wooden or rawhide mallets to do, like, if you want to straighten something that's got some more delicate edge work on it, you know, some scroll work or some curves in it. If you want to straighten it, you don't want to do hard hammer blows, so you'll use a rawhide or a wooden mallet to straighten that out.
And that's another thing, although this building is like 130, 40 years old, the surface we're standing on right now is stone.
Yeah.
So, and if you're going from the fire to the anvil back and forth, and yeah, the hot cold drops on stone, it's not going to do anything. So.
Well, and even on this wood, like, even if it were just on the straight wood floor, which you know, this slate pad that we're standing on was never here. They would have never taken the extra time to put that down in an industrial capacity like this. You know, even like I said, even if something did hit the wood floor, there's a lot of dirt and a lot of, you know, inhibitors for the wood to fully combust, and you'd have to really leave it there for an extended period of time for that, you know, to catch fire and then to spread enough so that it would catch and stay caught. So yeah, it's relatively. I oftentimes equate it that I don't think it's any more dangerous than cooking in your kitchen. You play with sharp knives when you cook, and you know, you can get hurt just as bad and have to make a trip to the hospital. You know, so it really isn't all that dangerous as long as you're cognizant and aware of what you're doing.
So now, when you come in, and so you come in on a Saturday to start forging, how much prep work do you need to do before you can actually start? I mean, how long does it take for this to heat up for you to
15 minutes tops. The biggest concern that we usually do is make sure that we warm the flue so that you get a really nice draft. So that way we're not filling the room with smoke. But yeah, once if this was outside, And with the hand crank blower that we had there, I would just take, and if I wasn't worried about smoke going anywhere, I would just wad up a ball of paper,
Yep.
nice and tight, and I would put it in the middle, pack coal over top of it, light it, and once I know the paper was good and going, I just start cranking on the hand crank the hand crank blower there, and within 2 or 3 minutes, I'd be,
Wow.
maybe 5 long in. The wood would be, or I'm sorry, not the wood. The coal would be lit, and we'd be ready to go.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really not a long process.
Wow, that surprised me. I figured it would take a lot longer.
Oh no,
Yeah,
we're
like
usually
a
ready to
half
go.
hour.
No, we're
God,
ready to go.
It takes me forever to boil
Yep.
a pot of water to make spaghetti.
A washpot never boils.
That's right.
But no, it's really quick, and that's the nice thing. We can come in here and we just get going right away, and we try to have a couple of project ideas in mind, just little demonstration pieces that we can do. We try to. I'm always looking for a different thing to try.
So we're thinking possibly in this museum of starting to build carriages. So are you ready to? I'm kidding.
Yeah, I'm not a Wainwright or a Cartwright, so I probably wouldn't do a
Well, no,
very
you
good
just
job.
you just have to do the metal stuff on them.
I don't even know if I'd do that good. Like I said, I'm a hobby blacksmith. I'm really quite amateur. I mean, I enjoy it, and I love to continue to do this, and I want to continue to chase after it and get better at it. That's my goal. But yeah, I mean, there's a number of things that go into. I would think. I don't think you would take a guy who's in his first week at the career tech school working in automotive and say, all right, we're going to take you over to the shop now. I want you to strip down this engine, rebuild it. I mean, maybe he'd do all right, maybe he wouldn't. I don't know.
There's really a lot of and there is
There is a lot of
and
science.
there really is.
There's a lot of metallurgy. There's a lot that goes into the metallurgy, and that's one of the other things as a historian for me. I look at blacksmithing as really fascinating because you had these people that were wildly uneducated in the ways of science and the universe and the world, but they could take this science-heavy trade and make such marvelous things out of metal. Weapons, armor, decorative work, wrought iron railings. Intricate balustrades that they have in these buildings. And they had most of them. If you go back far enough back in antiquity, most of them probably didn't know how to read.
Exactly.
They
could do all
but they
that.
could do all this amazing work with iron, and it's really fascinating.
Yeah, yeah. Now, this is a question I get asked. Why different kinds of anvils or sizes?
Well, different anvils really is just sort of dependent on where you are in the world. This is a London pattern anvil, but there are other anvils that have a double horn. There's a stake anvil there.
Thing over here.
Yeah, that's a stake anvil. That's meant to be portable. And so its portability is going to be sort of relative to its size.
Okay.
Or vice versa. And it really just depends on the application. You have Ferrer's anvils. Ferrer anvils are shaped different. Most of the mass of a Ferrer's anvil is in the horn instead of in the body because you're doing more work with shaping horseshoes.
Okay.
And
all right.
And so that end of things is going to sort of determine how the anvil is shaped and then how it's used. But really, and larger anvils are meant for larger work. To answer your other question, the size aspect is really, you're not going to do heavy work on a small anvil. The anvil itself probably won't be able to take the abuse that you're putting into. And you can actually, if you look at some really old anvils, and I've been to another museum where they have an anvil from the 1500s and from France, and the top is all misshapen.
Way back.
And it looks like a saddle.
Yeah. Wow.
Fit a horse.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it saw a lot of heavy work. It saw a lot of abuse in its time. And the bigger anvil can handle heavier
Bigger
work.
piece.
You try to work on a bigger piece on a smaller anvil, you're going to probably damage the anvil.
Okay.
And so you don't want to do that. This is probably the most expensive part of the smithing.
Really?
In new, they're very expensive. In used, they can be very expensive.
Yeah. What's the hole for?
Well, you have different holes. So if you want, we can go over the different aspects of the anvil.
Well,
So we have.
people ask me stuff,
Yeah.
and I'm like,
Well,
no, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, it's not most people
Yeah.
do.
So now we can tell them after Nick's done here,
That's right.
say, tune into the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, find out all you want to know. So you have the anvil here, and you have generally this is the body, you have the heel and the horn. Okay. You have 2 holes in most anvils. You have what's called a hardy hole, and this is a hole that fits tools. All right.
Okay.
So you're gonna have different tools that will go in there to do different kinds of work, cutting, shaping,
All right.
bending. Different aspects of that. You have a Pritchell hole, and that's a smaller hole to do, other similar kind of work. You could be punching through there.
Okay.
If the diameter of your punch is hole that you have to punch is small enough, you can do it here as well. This anvil has what's called a table over here. Usually, this is where you do work that you want to do you don't want to do on the face of the anvil because you're concerned that you'd mar the face of the anvil.
Ah, all right.
So another way to prevent that would be to get like a sacrifice piece of steel or tool steel or other flat iron surface that you could just lay on top of the face.
Protective
Protect it.
covering.
Yes,
or
because
something.
this is
Okay.
some anvils are forged, some are cast. Cast anvils have a tool steel face welded to them, and this is you want this kept in relatively good condition. You don't
Okay.
because again when you well, not again, but to inform you, when you go work on this and the metal's hot, any kind of deformity in the face or in your hammer is going to show up in your work
In the final
because you're going
product.
to be working the piece into the anvil, and it will
Get
catch
an
those.
imprint of
Yeah,
it or
and
something.
yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
I got my hands all dirty.
And we've already. We didn't even have him hammer any.
Yeah, I
any
didn't even have to get started. So, but yeah, so there's other anvils that have different tools, like sort of pieces attached to them. One of them would be like an upsetting block or something like that. And the whole anvil is a tool itself. I mean, you can use the horn, you can use the edges, you can use these curves right here, and to do radius work, to make radiuses. And so this is the very important tool.
Yeah.
Probably one of the most important. Simple anvils could be something as mundane as a piece of railroad track that's been cut out and either flipped over upside down or right side up and the top's flattened off. So there's a number of ways to go ahead and do the trade without an anvil, but this is the preferred method.
Yeah, essential.
And it's probably preferred because you mentioned a railroad, okay, that only has a few curves to it or a flat surface, whereas
Yes.
this has multiple curves and
Correct.
angles and so on and so forth. So
Yes. And you
can
can do
a
and
lot
that's-
more with this.
Yep, and that's why you have like the horn and stuff on there because if you do need to roll something or put something a radius in there, you need a place to do that. And if you have that available, it's a lot better than trying to make it happen without it.
Cool.
Great.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot more we could probably ask. So I think the lesson is you need to come on a Saturday
We're here.
and catch one of the blacksmiths
Yep.
and
And they're all knowledgeable and willing to talk, all three
Yeah.
of them.
Yep. We love
Yeah.
questions.
yeah. So come in and stump them. They need
Yes.
Yeah.
Ask me a question that I'll have to look up. I would appreciate that. That's
So
always
yeah,
good.
definitely check it out on Saturdays, and it's not like we don't charge extra for to come see you guys. So make sure to take advantage of that. It's really neat.
Yeah,
So
be great. It would please.
Yeah.
We like having people come up.
that's right. They don't want to have no visitors. They want visitors up here. So we've got a bench out for you.
That's
so.
it. All right.
Well, thanks, Nick.
Okay, good.
It's
Thank you very much,
interesting.
Kendra.
Thank
Yep,
you.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Yep.
And I guess we'll go back to the diner, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could do that.
We'll wrap up in the diner, and we'll see you there.
Okay, here we are back in the diner, okay?
Yeah.
And for those of you who've been watching our show last several months, sort of at the end of it, we talk about places we might have been, might have seen in the state of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, and found out there were
are
rules.
places that probably you haven't thought of or haven't visited, and if you have, all the better. But Kendra, you've been like somewhere like really cool, right?
I think so.
Was it like Lebanon, Pennsylvania?
No, it's like Nantmeal Township.
I've heard of that. Kind of sounds like oatmeal.
Nantmeal, yeah.
Oatmeal.
Yeah, so actually I went back home, or close to home. So I grew up in northern Chester County, and even though my dad's Boyertownian, my mom's from up in Williamsport area, but I grew up in Chester County. And I think Chester County is beautiful, by the way. If you want a nice drive, just drive anywhere in Chester County, because there's a lot of nice scenery. But when I was a kid, one of my favorite things that we did was we went on walks around the block, we called it, which in rural Chester County means and one of my favorite routes, which is about 5.3 miles round trip to get back to our house at the end. We took a road, we would walk on Valley Way Road, or just Valley Way.
Sounds pretty exciting so far.
It is like my favorite road. You should all go check it out. So it's in East Nantmeal Township, and nobody lives on Valley Way. There's no house there. And it's not a long road. It connects Nantmeal Road with Warwick Furnace Road. Really is its whole point of existence. And it crosses the French Creek, southern branch of the French Creek. And there's a really cool little bridge, which we'll get to in a minute. But there's on your screen, there's a map. And you can see Valley Way, there's that little pinpoint there is right kind of smack in the middle of Valley Way. It's not a long road at all. I'll just go through some photos as I was driving the other week. One of the reasons I love it is there's a section of it that is so dense with the trees. It's like a dark green tunnel. It's really cool looking. So really neat place. Well, there's a photo of the bridge. Nice little stone arch bridge. It is marked as a 1-lane. If you really want to be, if you had 2 of my little orange cars, you could fit them both on there.
Now, is this a gravel road or paved? Or it used to be paved and it's turning into gravel?
Yeah, that sounds more right. Yeah, this is a road they oil and chip, really. They don't really pave it anymore. The bridge itself is considered a contributing resource for a historic district, which is the Warwick Furnace Farms Complex. The Warwick Furnace started in 1720, and it was in operation until 1867, so this really goes back. And I'm just gonna go, you'll see some photos of the bridge here. It's nice stonework. We'll get to a point where you can see, well, the French Creek, it's really just so picturesque there, I have to say. And there's a historic marker for Warwick Furnace. Samuel Nutt, which is a name, N-U-T-T, you hear that a lot around this area. But they made cannonballs for the Revolutionary War. The furnace itself is kind of in ruins, which is that picture there. Although there was something up about that they're trying to preserve it. That's news to me. On the Warwick Furnace end of Valley Road is a beautiful mansion that went along with the furnace, which up until a few years ago was owned by the Pews, P-E-W, Pew Research Trust, or Pew Sunoco Oil. In fact, the no trespassing signs still have her name on them, even though they don't own them anymore. But the house is gorgeous, and it's still there. I used to go in that when I was a little girl because we knew the caretakers, so I used to go in the old Pew Mansion, and it's a really cool place.
But you're saying right now it is off limits?
Right now it's owned by someone else who, last I heard, was trying to turn it into like a wedding place, a place to get married. But I think they're having trouble with that. They're doing work on the place, but all good, like to keep it looking like it does, not modernizing it or anything.
Yep.
It looks really nice. But
No aluminum siding.
no aluminum siding.
Okay, that's nice.
But let's get back to this bridge here, because
Yeah.
it is a really cool little bridge. It's only, the whole structure is only 30.8 feet. The main span length is 25 feet. Like I said, it's considered a contributing historic resource. It's in really good shape. No one in my family can remember them ever working on it, though. But I feel like right now every bridge in Berks County is being worked on. It seems every
But
time I
this is in
drive.
Chester
But this
County.
is in Chester.
So they build good bridges in Chester
Apparently,
County.
apparently.
Is that what you're saying? Huh?
It's a little jab. No.
Yeah.
So there's a a plaque on the bridge, and you can see County Bridge number 246. It was built in 1913, and it even has like the engineer and the builders written. It's really cool. The engineer was a Nathan Rambo, who built a lot of bridges in Chester County. There's a great website called historicbridges.org. That's a time waster if you're really into to bridges.
What was he a boxer?
It's a great name, isn't it?
Rambo?
Rambo. It's great. And this firm, this McCormick and Son that built it, they come up a lot too in Chester County. They were out of Westchester. But there's another name on this bridge that I'm going to talk about. The county commissioners are listed on this bridge. And the first one listed is a Swithin Shortledge.
It's not a common name.
Not
First
to my
or
knowledge,
last.
no. So I Googled Mr. Shortledge there, and I came up with two big things as a result. One was, it seems he had a son who at age 10, and this was written in 1902 in the Morning News out of Wilmington, Delaware. 10-year-old Swithin Shortledge was the son of a Chester County farmer, it noted, which made sense, was probably fatally injured when he and his brother Raymond were taking food to market in a wagon, and the horses got spooked and bolted, and the wagon upset. I couldn't find a follow-up article on that, because it said he had a skull fracture, which I imagine is serious now, and in 1902 I imagine was a lot more serious. But it turns out he did not die as a result of this. He died in 1977. I was able to find through genealogical records. He got married, and so that didn't kill him. But something else came up when I Googled Swithin Shortledge. A professor Swithin Shortledge. Oh, and I should note that our county commissioner here, he was elected commissioner in 1906, and he was an advocate of good bridges and roads. So I wonder, is this like a spearheaded thing by him? But let's talk about this other Swithin Shortledge. And there's his picture there. And he was a professor. And I found, this is the big thing I found when I Google that name. The Times of Philadelphia, January 2nd, 1894, was talking about that he was the professor of the Media Academy, this prestigious school in media, which is Delaware County, I believe. He was sent to Norristown for being insane. He shot his wife 6 times in the back in 1893. Yes, he did. At least one time in the head.
Accidentally?
Yeah, 6 times by accident. Now, his wife was much, much younger. Like, she was in her early 20s, and he was much, much older than her. And he only was married to her for 2 months when he killed her. And I have to say that this kind of made me, I was shocked. I kind of stood there, I sat there and I looked at the computer in awe, because I listen to a lot of true crime stuff, if you don't already know that about me. I've heard a lot of really awful things, but I think some of it was the time period. It's 1893, you don't hear about that kind of stuff happening. The other reason that kind of took me aback is, remember in the beginning of the show when I said my mom was from Williamsport area? said that because my mom's family is the Shortledge family.
Whoa.
Yeah. So my mom, when she moved here, found out that her family actually was from this area, Chester and Delaware counties. And she said, you know, they just kind of laugh in the family that there was a black sheep that they were trying to avoid, which is why they moved upstate. And now I'm a little scared that this guy may be related to me. Now, this is not the commissioner. I kept digging. I think this is the commissioner's uncle.
Okay.
Because after he got out of the mental hospital, him and his brother, Evan, who was the county commissioner's father, I believe, basically took the insurance company to court because the life insurance company didn't want to pay him. Not because he killed his wife, but because he was delinquent on payment of a premium. And they went to court, it went to the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. So I came here with the thoughts of having this cute little, oh, it's a small world story. Look, my mom moved back to where her relatives came from, and I found out that there's a crazy murderer back in my family.
Wow.
So be careful all out there when you do genealogical research. If you go around
I thought you were going to say beware of you.
So as you travel Chester County, look for his name. I think it's odd that he named his son after his crazy uncle, but hey, who am I? Who am I to say? But yeah, that's my story. It's a beautiful bridge and a beautiful furnace. You should really go check it out.
Okay.
It's a nice area, and you can think about all the scandal that was going on in this area in the Victorian times. So that's where I've been lately.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. You know, they tell you, like when you do the DNA test, you know, the kits that you spit into and stuff, they tell you, be careful because know that you might find a relative you didn't know existed because they put you in their little database and, oh, I found out this isn't really my mom or, you know, whatever, and I had these brothers I didn't know about. Be careful when you do genealogical research because you might dig up a murderer. I thought the black sheep was like a cattle rustler, but that's what we got. So,
About there.
yeah,
Okay.
there we go. That's where I've been. And we've had a pretty packed program, so we're pretty
Yeah,
much
excellent.
at the end. Yeah.
We are.
And I guess next month we'll see you all at Duryea Day.
I believe so, yes.
Awesome. Awesome. So we'll see you at the park. Much different scenery there.
Yes.